There's always someone that has more than you. One of the biggest mistakes people make in investing is they invest in things that start to drain their energy or have them lose sleep, because if you invest and it creates or elicits any degree of scarcity or fear, it's not a good investment for you. I met with a business owner. He was worth $70 million at the time that I met with him. He had less than $1 million in his 401k, yet he was not sleeping at night, and his business was starting to suffer because of the losses that he was getting inside of his 401k because the market was going down at the time. He had taken a 10% hit. And I said, well, why do you put money in the 401k in the first place? He goes, well, that's what my financial advisor tells me to do. And I'm like, how do they get paid? Oh, fees on the 401k. That's all that they're going to tell you to do. I'm like, let's talk about the best investments that you've ever had in your life. Number one, he owned an Andy Warhol painting that he sold early because of lack of liquidity. I'm like, if you would have held on to it, how much more is it worth now? He said 3.5 times more. He was really good at buying wine. And I said, hey, if you make a mistake buying wine, you can drink it and you'll forget about the mistake. So it's a really good scenario there anyway. The third thing is he built a home that Oprah featured on when she used to have her regular show before the Oprah Winfrey Network, because of how smart of a home it was and how cool it was in St. Charles. And so I'm like, well, maybe those are better investments for you. And you know what? He abandoned funding a 401k. We used it to buy some land in Bali where he was going to build a nice little spread that he could have out there, and he's in Bali right now. And that was a lot more confidence, a lot more aligned with his investor DNA, stopped doing things that everyone else was telling him to do that even though it didn't feel like it was working for him, he felt guilty about, and he was indoctrinated in this accumulation philosophy. And guess what? Now he's able to focus on his business and have his business grow. So investing, one of the biggest mistakes people make in investing is they invest in things that start to drain their energy or have them lose sleep, because if you invest and it creates or elicits any degree of scarcity or fear, it's not a good investment for you. Regardless of the rate of return of the investment, here's why. Your greatest return is your ability to generate a vision, to produce value within your business, and deliver value for your customers and clients and people you interact with. And if you start investing in something that derails you, distracts you, or harms you, then you're losing your biggest ability to produce, and that's called opportunity cost. And most people can't recognize and calculate that, but I'm telling you, that is the biggest thing. And so this is all on lever 4 here, scale business revenue. The biggest way to do it, build a vision that's compelling enough that other people want to build it with you or for you, right? That's scale. And then finally, make it count. Make it count is about relaxation and rejuvenation. In my 20s, I was a fairly competitive person. I wanted to be the, highest producing financial guy in all the circles I was in, and if I heard anyone doing more than me, I immediately was depressed and hated myself and, lowered my self-esteem and pissed off and all that kind of stuff, because I didn't really have any measures of what success meant. It was just I had more than anyone else. But guess what? There's always someone that has more than you. Who has more money? Warren Buffett or someone else? Well, the Rothschilds have more money than him. There's always something you can find if you're in that comparison mindset. I think the best thing to compare to is where you came from more than everyone else, because then it's about progress over perfection. But in my 20s, people would always ask, oh, you live in Utah, do you ski? I'm like, no, I own a business. They're like, what are your hobbies? I'm like, business. What do you do for fun? Business. It was pretty much the only answer that I had. I didn't understand this make it count thing, but I was in a program called Strategic Coach, and Dan Sullivan was the founder, and Bab Smith was the president and ran it, and I became one of their top 3 referrers, so I got a lot of time and attention from them. And I remember Bab sitting down with me, and she's like, I think you're great, but I think that if you don't take some time off, you're really going to suffer, and you'll make more money if you take more time off. And I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. How am I going to make more money by taking more time off? She goes, have we led you astray on anything else? I'm like, no. She's like, will you just start taking some more time off? So I started taking time off, which was a lot like, I think probably what it's like to get over a crack addiction, I remember scheduling a snowmobile outing because I knew in the mountains I couldn't get the phone service with my cell phone. I told the guys I went with, I'm not allowed to make any calls or emails. I'm supposed to be away from the office fully for 24 hours. I thought the world was going to implode. I thought like every client was going to have an emergency. Like I just had all these crazy notions, and it was a little bit tough. But then I got really good at it. I was taking Wednesdays off, and I realized none of my friends had Wednesday off. So I was like hanging out, My wife was a school teacher. I was like, maybe Wednesdays aren't the best day right now to be taking off. But I got pretty good at it. And after the first year of taking all these days off, I made $170,000 more. I was like, damn, you know what it came down to? It was this. You get much more strategic about what you delegate and how you let other people help you when you take time away. That's the first thing. The second thing is there's something called diminishing marginal productivity. Diminishing marginal productivity is when you just get exhausted and worn out. Think of it as like an athlete. You know, sometimes if they're going into overtime and everything, their legs start cramping up and they start getting extra fatigue. That happens in business. We get this mental fatigue. We get in these ruts and routines. We might be spending more time there but being less effective. So by taking time off, you come back refreshed, and guess what? When you're refreshed and rejuvenated, your best ideas come, and your best ideas are what drive the vision. And remember, vision is what drives the value. So some of the best things that most business owners can do is take time away from the business, because then other people step up. I remember starting Strategic Coach, calling my assistant Amy and saying, okay, I'm going to fly to Chicago. I'm not allowed to be in contact with anyone in the office during the entire trip, so when I get back, we'll get back in touch. I landed, turned on my phone, 7 messages already from Amy. Now, we could blame Amy, but the real truth of the matter was it was all my fault, because that's what I had told her to do, is bring everything to me. So I kept, like, as difficult as it was, I didn't get in touch with her until I finally got home. But the second I landed in Salt Lake, I made the call, and I was like, okay, let's go through all this. She's like, go through what? I'm like, well, all your messages. She's like, no, I got it all handled. It's all done. Right? So take time off. Think about what would make life enjoyable. What makes you happy? What are some of the hobbies, the interests? Is it travel? That's why I'm going to spend 2 months in Italy. It's like, when else will I have a chance with my kids at 9 and 11 to go and learn a different language, meet some of my family that doesn't even speak English, and just kind of relax and have some friends over and, you know, have 4-hour European dinners, how that type of thing goes. Like, that's better than waiting for 30 years from now, you know? Which, who knows what's going to happen, because I had 2 business partners that died in a plane crash in 2006, right? Now, I learned really well from these guys, because just a month before the plane crash, Les, one of my partners, came to me and he said, you know, I can't imagine life being any better. I love my life. I remember him saying that so distinctly, and it was actually so much easier to accept him dying at age 35 based upon that conversation. See, because when I first met them, I was smart in some ways, but dumb in others. Like, they liked having me around because I researched, I could present well, some of these kind of things. But at the same time, we'd go to Hawaii, and I would spend less in Hawaii than I would spend if I was still in Utah. It's like, well, we don't need meals. We'll bring our own snacks there, you know? Like, they're off on the beach, hiring photographers, doing night diving, and I'm judging the hell out of them. Like, what wasteful, like, they're hurting their net worth. You know, I had read The Millionaire Next Door. Anyone read The Millionaire Next Door? Spoiler alert if you haven't read it. If you're willing to be a miser, you can leave behind millions of dollars for people to blow within 3 years, like I said before, right? The Millionaire Next Door mindset is what I had early on developed, where I just thought if I never spent any money, that there would be a whole bunch. But for what reason? To look at dots on a piece of paper? To brag about my statements? I mean, if you never utilize it, what good is it? And so fortunately, these guys really helped me kind of break free from that and start to live a lot better life. And I started making more money, taking more time off, making it count. And now I can think about things like what I wrote in What Would the Rockefellers Do, which is like, okay, what would I want to transfer to the next generation so my great-great-great-grandkids would know my name, what I stood for, and have it impact their life, because it would be about philosophy, contribution, values, things that can translate, not just money. That's what Make It Count is about. What are the experiences that you want to have in life? We've chosen as our Make It Count, we always have a trip on the books to look forward to. Because every now and again, life gets hectic. You know, I've got a 9-year-old that acts just like me, so you can imagine the handful that he is. He now has green hair. Must want to be a rock star too. You know, the 11-year-old, very high-maintenance kid, loving, super sweet soul, but, you know, everything's just a little extra time, a little extra attention when it comes to school. So I want to spend some time with them now. I want to do things that would be enjoyable, and I want to, when those things are difficult, I want something to look forward to because it's on the books. That's what Make It Count is. What do you enjoy in life? And you heard Demi bring up something called soul purpose. So soul purpose, I know we're talking about that in a financial event here, but what soul purpose is your values, it's your abilities, it's your passions, combined for the highest like the highest vision of your life. That's your soul purpose. When things are aligned with that, you're gonna feel dialed in. You're gonna have energy. You're gonna be able to produce more. You're gonna have more zeal. You're gonna, like, soul purpose is critical, and so Make It Count is about you living a soul purpose life.